Hello everyone, welcome to Lockdown Sees the World. Last session we talked about the founder of modern America, Theodore Roosevelt, and his spirit of self-improvement and pursuit of social progress, development of U.S. Navy, and achievement in diplomacy, and devoted to our modern America. Today we talk about another side of his life and his chivalry, tenderness, and the love in his inner world. Our topic starts from this picture of his happy family, which was taken in 1903 on the long grass in front of his house, with totally 8 people. From left to the right, they were the youngest son, Quentin, Theodore Roosevelt, the oldest son, Ted, the third son, Archibald, oldest daughter, Alice, the second son, Kermit, First Lady Alice, and second daughter, Ethel. Standing in the middle was his oldest daughter, Alice Roosevelt, actually the only daughter of Theodore Roosevelt and his first wife, Alice Hathaway Lee. Alice Hathaway Lee was 3 years younger than Theodore Roosevelt. She was born in New York on July 29, 1861, and her father was a banker. Since childhood, she was pretty and active, nicknamed as Sunshine. She had a cousin named Richard Dick, and lived as her neighbor. Richard and Theodore Roosevelt were classmates in Harvard University. On the day of October 18, 1878, Theodore Roosevelt went to see Richard and ran into Alice. They fell in love at the first glimpse. Later, Roosevelt said in his diary, "As long as I live, I shall never forget how sweetly she looked and how prettily she greeted me." Next year, he proposed to her and got the answer yes after 8 months waiting. On February 14th, that's 1880, the Valentine's Day, they got engaged. And on October 27th, the 22nd anniversary of Theodore's birthday, they married at a church in Brooklyn, Massachusetts, the year that Alice was 19. For almost 4 years, they lived together happily. On February 12, 1884, at about 8:30, Alice Lee gave birth to their daughter, Alice Roosevelt. At that time, and Theodore Roosevelt was still in a meeting in New York State Congress. And then he received an emergency telegram that the wife very sick. When he hurried back home, and Alice was faint. And whether it's a syndrome of delivery or the failure of her kidney, is not so sure about the course. 2 days later, the afternoon, February 14th, 1884, Valentine's Day, and the 4-year anniversary of their engagement, his first wife, Alice, quietly left him into the world. He wrote in his diary, "As a flower she grew, as a flower she left." Her life had been always in the sunshine, and there had never come to her a single sorrow. As a young wife, and when she had just become a mother, and when her life seemed to be just began, and when the years seemed so bright before her, then by a strange and a terrible fate, death came to her. And when my heart's dearest died, the light went from my life forever. The name of Alice became heartbroken to him, and though their daughter was also named Alice, he had never called her by name, just say by sweetheart. On the same day, February 14th, 1884, Valentine's Day, and several hours before his wife's death, his mother also passed away at the age of 48. We can imagine how suddenly he lost his wife and his mother, at the same time. And such a great shock to the 26th Roosevelt, like a thunder over his head. What a fate and despair. Theodore Roosevelt's mother was Martha Mitty Bullock, who was born in Connecticut on July 8, 1835. And later, her family moved to Roosevelt in Georgia, north of Atlanta, and with a large plantation. When she grew up, she was very pretty and a social star. It was said she was just the prototype of the Scarlett O'Hara that in the movie Gone with the Wind. The novelist Margaret Mitchell had interviewed some of Martha's girl maidens. Martha had 4 children. The oldest daughter, Anna, son Theodore Roosevelt, the younger son, Elliot, and the youngest daughter, Corinne. The daughter of Elliot was Eleanor Roosevelt, who married to Franklin Roosevelt in 1905. Franklin Roosevelt was a great U.S. president in the Second World War, and he was usually called Roosevelt Jr. Originally, he was a 5th-generation cousin to Theodore Roosevelt. His marriage, he became the nephew-in-law of Theodore Roosevelt, yet Theodore Roosevelt was a Republican and Franklin Roosevelt was a Democrat. Different political positions didn't differentiate their family relation. Theodore Roosevelt suffered deeply in emotion after his wife and mother passed away. He resigned his job and put Alice under the care of his sister Anna and retreated to a far and wild ranch in North Dakota, like a true cowboy. 2 years later, a severe blizzard destroyed his ranch. He had to return to New York. Soon after he came back, he met his second wife, actually, it's his first girlfriend, Alice. Alice Carroll was born in a rich family of Connecticut on August 6, 1861, and lived as Roosevelt's neighbor. Alice and Roosevelt's younger sister Corinne were very good friends. They played together and going to school together. She and Roosevelt, they wrote to each other, and even after Roosevelt's first year in Harvard, that Alice went to school to see him, and Roosevelt also proclaimed that Alice was his girlfriend. Both their two families hoped they could get together. Yet, in the second year of his college, they argued fiercely for political issues, and their relations broke off. So it happened in his third year in Harvard University. He ran into Alice. On his wedding day with Alice helped as a bridesmaid and a receptionist to Alice's parents. After back from the ranch, Roosevelt and Alice, they met again and resumed their relations. Roosevelt agreed to remarriage. In December 1886, they married and took a 3-year-old Alice under their care. The oldest daughter, Alice, was like her mother, pretty and smart, yet only rebellious and weird. In 1901, when her father succeeded as president, she had her debut party in the White House, and she enjoyed smoking on a roof of the White House and always had a small snake as her pet in the purse. In 1906, at the year of 22, and she married to Nicholas Lammers, a congressman 14 years older than she and a little bit bald. Alice was good at social, and she had met all the presidents after her father, including Ronald Reagan, when she passed away at the age of 96 in 1980. Theodore Roosevelt's second wife, Alice, encouraged his husband back to politics and finally helped him to be our U.S. president. and give him a big happy family. Roosevelt used to play with his children at home, and he himself sometimes behaved like a kid. He enjoyed his family life and give the credit to his wife Alice. Roosevelt and Alice, they totally had 5 children, and by age they were the oldest son, Theodore III, Ted Theodore, who was born in 1887 and graduated from Harvard University, and later engaged in politics and business. And he was assigned as Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Navy and Governor to Puerto Rico and to Philippines. During the Second World War, he served in U.S. Army as a general. In July 1944, he died of sickness in France and after Normandy landing. A second son was Carmen, born in 1889 and graduated from Harvard University and joined in the 2 world wars. In June 1944, during his military service in Alaska, he committed suicide due to alcoholism and depression, but announced as a heart attack. And daughter Ethel, born in 1891, who worked as a nurse in the French Army in the First World War, later served in American Red Cross. She accompanied her mother for long and died at the age of 86, not long after visiting President Jimmy Carter and the First Lady Catherine in the White House. The third son was Archibald, or Aki, who was born in 1894, graduated from Harvard University and joined in 2 world wars and got injured for many times. He engaged in business, investment, and some research work and died in October 1979. The youngest son was Quentin, who was born in 1897, spoiled at home and called my little bad man by Theodore. After the First World War, and he joined in U.S. Air Force and stationed in France. During an air battle in July 14th, 1918, he was killed at the age of 21. His death was a great strike to his father, and after 6 months, Theodore Roosevelt also passed away at the age of 61 on January 6, 1919. In America, the image of Theodore Roosevelt has been a cowboy, a rough rider, with carrot in one hand and a big stick in the other for U.S. interests. Yet, under the tough appearance of him, and he had also a genuine tenderness and a devoted chivalry love to his family. And I hope you know more about Theodore Roosevelt and American history by the story above. Here comes the end of today's program, and thank you for your joining in, and see you next time. Thanks, bye.